All right, welcome to the latest edition of Mr. Messner's Math in the Real World Speaker Series. It's kind of transitioned more into Mr. Messner's Real World Speaker Series. And with me again, um, this is the second time in a row that I've interviewed. You've been my only interviewee over the last 2 years. I have my wife, Leah Mesches. Leah, say hi to everybody. Where are we Zooming from today?
Hey everyone, I am Zooming from Mr. Messner's house today, working
What?
from
That's
home.
crazy. Work from home, Leah. That's great.
Yeah,
It
I should
couldn't.
not have been working from home today.
Yes, we couldn't have figured. We tried to get you to go from the office when we had this conversation, and and then life has other plans. So what happened with life today?
Oh yeah, I think you know about this. Our child is homesick,
Yep.
but that gives us time to have this conversation.
Great. Great. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. Can you tell us what do you do? What is your title and who do you work for?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a senior recruiter. I work for a company called Ooni. We are based in Edinburgh, Scotland, but our US office is here in Austin. And then we have offices globally around the world. And I'm sure we'll get into what I do and what that looks like. But that is where I work.
Cool. Senior
And oh, I guess,
recruiter.
yeah, and I guess I should say what Ooni does, huh?
Sure, sure. Senior recruiter at Ooni. And then the next question was like, what is Ooni? Like, how do you even spell Ooni?
Yes, Ooni, Ooni.
Okay.
Like I said, we're based in Scotland, but one of the owners is Finnish, and Ooni is oven in Finnish. So we
Oh,
make, yes, so we make outdoor pizza ovens, portable pizza ovens that you can use in your backyard, carry around with you. Mr. Messner does like the Ooni products.
I
And we
do.
also have a lot of accessories and a new electric oven as well that can be used indoors or outdoors.
Cool, cool. So you are a senior recruiter for Ooni that makes pizza ovens. What does senior recruiters do on like a day-to-day basis working for Ooni or just working for any company? What would a senior recruiter typically do?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me at this company, I have done a lot of things, but I have been doing a lot of strategy around recruitment and hiring. So I hire our US folks, people in the UK, in Europe. I've hired some people in Australia and Germany as well. But as a senior recruiter, yeah, I think you are really responsible for the strategy and how you're going to get the people who are needed, partnering with leadership to make sure that they know how they want to build out their team and what they want it to look like, and then really implementing a solid interview and candidate experience pipeline.
Okay, so you help hire people by connecting people, making sure you have a nice process in place, and connecting people to the company and to the right leadership in the company. So is that a good summation of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. I would say that most senior recruiters, if you see that title, are really responsible for all aspects of the recruiting process. So, what that would normally look like is working closely with all the hiring managers to justify the need for the person that they're looking to hire. You are figuring out how to really identify and attract that top talent. And then you want to make a clear process, yeah, from how you're going to source the candidates through the time you hire them and figuring out what that's going to look like.
Now, since you're a senior recruiter, I take it you're hiring all types of employees to work at Uni. So like tell me all of the different types of like people you've hired to do like what jobs. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
absolutely. So yes, I hire entry level people through C-suite. So that can be
Well, what's an entry
anything.
level person? Entry level, what does an entry level person do at Uni? Do they do everything? Like,
Sure. So across our department, so we have engineers who actually design our products. They are based in Scotland. We do hire, they call them like graduate engineers. So that those are people who are pretty new to engineering. So it's what they studied, but they haven't had that work experience.
cool,
Um,
cool. So
I guess,
you got
yeah.
engineers. So people getting an engineering degree could work for you. Cool.
Yep, we've got a huge marketing and brand team. So that is everything we do to advertise our products, get people to our site, to our retailer sites, to learn more. So I would say we have entry level through C-suite there.
A lot of
That's
business
like
majors, people with business experience are trying to work for you. Okay, cool.
absolutely, absolutely. We have a sales team. That's another place to kind of get in at the ground level as like a junior account manager or a sales coordinator, learning the ropes. So yeah, you see a lot of people who have business degrees or communications and things like that in that type of a role as well. A lot of opportunity if you've had some internships in that area to get in and have a more entry level role. I would say same with our brand team and communications team. And even with like junior copywriting, if you kind of studied that in school to get in writing copy for the team too, when you write for Ooni, you can be doing anything from manuals to what goes on an online ad to website copy. It could really be anything that gets into the hands of our consumers.
So even like English majors can get in there. But then you
Yeah.
also hire more experienced people, people who need to fill higher level roles who have to have work experience. So could you tell us about a couple of those roles? And then we will shift our focus back to your entry level roles.
Yeah, absolutely. So just over the last few months, I have hired product category managers who work closely with all teams. So they work across like our insights management, they work across sales and marketing to figure out how all of that comes together. And kind of create that retail and merchandising planning for the company. I have hired people to be in charge of our regenerative business. So what that looks like is we are very focused on sustainability and what that looks like from the top down, from our supply chain into our entire being as a company, right? So somebody who really understands supply chain and sustainability to kind of oversee all of those efforts. I have hired people who work on email marketing, paid ad marketing, performance marketing. I've hired a lot of sales folks, so regional sales managers, national account managers. I have, oh gosh, customer service. That's a great place to get in entry level and to really learn everything there is to learn about a company. You also get exposure to all different kinds of teams, which is really neat. And you can utilize a lot of skills that you've gotten from all of your schooling.
Cool. Sounds like it's a really big company that needs a lot of roles to help it operate. How many employees does Uni have?
We are sitting at just about 370 people right now.
Okay, cool. Not huge, huge, but you're hiring a lot. That's a lot of different roles, and a lot of them sound very, very complicated. So cool. Well, let's talk more about the process to get hired. Okay, so now we're going to shift more towards like my students who are about to start college, most of them, and are going to be studying in a field. And they're going to hopefully uh, try to get a job when they're done with college. And like, what does that look like for them in terms of connecting with Uni, applying to Uni, and then like, what would let's start with that. Like, how do you connect with a company first? Like, how can you see if a company needs people and are hiring? Where should they go?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I'm going to preface this with is I think the most effective way to find a job is always going to be networking and figuring out who you know or who knows somebody at the company you're looking at. So every time a popular company posts a job, they might get hundreds or even thousands of applicants. So yes, absolutely apply just on the standard application that you see. But I think really being proactive and trying to reach out to anyone you might know who has contacts in that company or industry is really important. It's not always comfortable, but putting yourself out there kind of gets you seen and gets your application seen. It doesn't necessarily get you the job, but if I have somebody message me, oh, I know this person, I've worked with them before, or they were my student, or I had them in this internship and they would be great for this role, I definitely take a second look at it.
Cool. So get your LinkedIn profiles set up and get your internships and try to meet as many people and have good interactions with them and kind of leave on a positive note with as many people as possible. It's kind of step
Yes.
one. Okay. Then you do apply through some sort of job site,
Yeah,
like a LinkedIn job site or something.
the most popular job sites would be your LinkedIn, Indeed, that sort of thing. But there are all sorts of specialized forums where you can look for jobs. I would say I would always go and directly apply on the company website and then try to figure out who works there. And I would also contact them to reiterate your interest, say that your application has been sent in, and maybe just like a line or two about what differentiates you or makes you great for the job.
Cool. So then we're going to come back to like what will get them into the door and into an interview, but we'll come back to that because I think that's the most important thing. So before we get into that big important part of our conversation, let's talk about what the interview process looks like. So let's say they got their foot in their door. We'll talk about that more later. But then how many steps does it take to get hired at Ooni, and what do those steps look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it looks a little different in each department, depending on what you're going to do. But I would say most typically at our company, the first thing that would happen is you would send in your application. And the first thing that would happen is that you would be contacted to have a screening call. So that is typically with a recruiter at the company. It's just getting a chance to get to know you, to confirm that you have the skills that you say you have
And
on
do
your
you do a
resume
lot of the
and your
screenings, or
application.
do like junior recruiters do the screenings?
Both. It really depends on the role. But
Okay.
oftentimes in a company as small as ours, yeah, I still do a lot of screenings. And then my other recruiters will also do a lot of screenings. And that's really a chance for us to get to know you as a person, to make sure that you have the skill set that we said you needed to have in the application, and whatever was on your resume and in your application answers matches what you're confirming in the call.
So it's a quick, like, little verbal test, like verbal, check to see that you are who you said you were. And like
Yeah. And I think,
we're putting you on
yes,
the spot. You're not able to look up things really quickly. It's like, you said this. Okay, tell me about this right now. So it's like you got to be confident in kind of who you are and what you know in this initial screening.
exactly, exactly. But it also, you're also interviewing the company. So it's also a chance to ask questions about the role and about the company, and to get some of those things out of the way, just making sure that you're applying for what you thought you applied for, and that it's still something, that you think is aligned with your skill set and that you would want to do.
Cool. So the phone screen happens. The person is who they said they were. We're still interested in that person. What happens next?
Yeah, absolutely. From there, we're doing the same thing with lots of people at one time, right? So then we're kind of narrowing down candidates. We're deciding who's going to move forward to the next step. And the next step at our company is typically an interview with the hiring manager for the role. So you're interviewing with the person who would be your direct manager, getting a little bit more in depth, talking about your specific expertise and skill set, what the job might look like. From there, we typically do another round interview that would include some kind of task or presentation. So if it's in software engineering, there might be a very specific technical assessment before coming on to a next call. If it's a marketing role or a sales role, you might give a short presentation coming into your final interview with a larger team, with other people that you might be working with. If it's a customer service role, you might be answering like mock questions. That might be the kinds of questions you would be getting from customers, across the states.
So you really have to like put together like a performance slash like showing them that you really know what you're doing and this is what you would do if you were in this role. It's almost like a project you would do at school, for a grade. It's like you would have to do something like that.
It's exactly like that. And it varies. Sometimes you're presenting it in real time. Sometimes you're handing it in beforehand. But yeah, it's exactly like a school project, and it's all kind of, it's getting a sense on our end what you would do in this type of role with the kinds of projects that we have for people. So how you would respond in your kind of day-to-day work. And it also gives candidates a chance to be like, do I even like doing this? Is this something, is this something that I think would be fun or interesting?
Right. And then what happens after that? Just another senior level kind of conversation, or is it like you pretty much know after the presentations who's who?
You pretty much know after the presentations, I would say, especially in the more junior and entry level roles. I would say that some of, the roles up in our C-suite would take, a couple more steps. Those are really big decisions
What's
to
a
make.
C-suite? Is that like a
Yeah, so that would be like your executive role. So looking
Okay.
at like CEO, CMO, CFO,
C-suite, the C's. Gotcha.
all the C's, all the
Yeah.
chiefs.
Yeah, Chiefs. Okay, the Chief Suite. Cool. All right. So yeah, that would take probably a couple more conversations. And if you're going to be a C, you're going to probably talk to the CEO, and that would be like the last conversation you have. Cool.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk about my students who are going to be college students. They're not going to be jumping into the C-suite. They're going to be jumping into those entry level roles. And you first talked about how you're applying on these generic recruiting websites, but you're also going into the company. You are trying to contact somebody specific in the company, but then like what in a application slash resume is really popping for you when you are reading through these, where you're like, ooh, I really need to talk to this person. This person is differentiating themselves, which seems to be a word that you mentioned a couple times from everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, especially for entry level roles, you want to look at what the job is in the job description and do a little bit of research. So, what does this job look like maybe in other organizations? See what you can find out about what that job means at the organization you're applying for. Um, and yeah, I would be thinking through, does my resume or cover letter or the questions I'm answering in the application show that I have these skills or that I have the ability to learn these skills? I'm coachable. I can really, I can demonstrate other times where I've learned a new skill and been able to do something totally new.
Seems like it's helpful if you have actual physical things that you've done that you can say, hey, look at this that I've done. This shows that I can do this within your company. Or I might not know exactly how to do this right now, but I've done something kind of similar in a college class. Here, look at this through this presentation, through this software that I've developed. Look through this, and you can see how like this is good work. Please look into me more. It seems like having something that's done that can be looked at versus, oh, this is the classes I took at college. That's better.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you've done in an internship. I mean, honestly, school projects are great if you've kind of done like a more practical project based on like real world learning. Yeah, definitely be able to speak to that in your interview. If they ask for a cover letter or a specific question that kind of comes around, what have you done, or do you know how to do this? You can say like, well, I've done this and here's how it translates, right?
So try to be very specific in the things that you've done to show that you can do the things that are asked of you.
Yeah,
versus
absolutely.
Hey, I get all A's, hire me. Do you respond well to a student or to somebody who comes to you and say, I'm a straight A student at this college, so you should hire me?
So here's what I'll say to that. I know there's thought lots of thoughts across different people and organizations on what grades mean. I would say for me, being a straight A student means that you probably have high work ethic and you work hard, but it's not everything. I would say it's all of the other things. It's that internship experience. It's the practical experience. It is some of your soft skills, your communication skills, how you're going to collaborate with other team members. It is, I mean, showing, are you innovative? Like, yes, have you done everything you were supposed to do to get the A's? Maybe, but can you also show that you can, show creative thinking and that you'll be able to eventually run with the good strategies for your team and things like that. So yes, getting straight A's is great, but I would say that other experience and other skill sets would probably be more important.
So if you're a C student, you shouldn't be like, oh, I'm a C student, I shouldn't apply anywhere.
Definitely not. But I would also find ways to talk about how you're going to be great at this job and the kind of effort you're going to put into it, maybe versus what you did in school.
Do you require people to list off their GPA from high school and college at your school when you're applying?
No, I will say there are certain areas or teams within like manufacturing design software where we will ask for portfolios or examples of the learning and projects and proof of that. But no, we're not looking for your grades.
No, you're looking for maybe things that you've done, software you've made, projects showing your experience developing a brand if you're in a business marketing class, but not necessarily, oh, I need your transcripts from this Texas school. Please send that to me.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Give me a second. I'm going to yell at people. Hey, can we keep it down that here? Okay, cool. If you could give one big piece of advice for a soon to be college student about, like, hey, you want to get hired coming right out of college at my company or another company, here's the one thing I would recommend you do. Could you give me that?
Oh, there are so many.
I know.
Okay, I think the biggest piece of advice is to be open-minded. So you might
Okay.
have an idea in your head about exactly what you want to do. And I think there are a lot of different ways to get to that place. So I think, being open to, especially if there's a specialization that you're looking into, something that you want to get good at, maybe it's not something you learned exactly in school. Maybe being open to those like administrator or coordinator roles where you really get to learn a little bit of everything. I think, and then in that same vein of like being open-minded, just having lots of conversations with as many people as you can. So I kind of go back to that networking, and I know it's not always comfortable for everyone. Do it in a way that feels authentic to you, but learn what people do, learn what they like and don't like about their roles, get advice on how they think you should go about trying to get to that place. And kind of go from there. But so that's kind of like part of that open mind is you might talk to somebody and you're like, oh, I'm not really interested in what they do, but maybe talk to them about the company and their role and talk about your skill sets and try to find something that could work. And I think within a lot of companies, you'll learn a ton, you'll gain some skills, and then you'll kind of create these building blocks to get to where you want to go.
Cool. So you got to network. This is definitely a big thing. You got to get to know people and companies. You got to be open to doing anything, getting your foot in the door. Maybe then you'll shift into something else. It seems like that's going to be an easier way in versus just blindly applying. But if you are blindly applying, make sure you have some really cool differentiating things that you can show. Hey, look at what I've created that shows that I know how to do what you are asking for. That's going to help differentiate you versus a, hey, look at my transcript and my 4.0 GPA.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I'll give a really cool example. I hire a ton of people coming in kind of as salespeople or customer service, right?
Okay.
And they have maybe lots of internships and they all have different majors from school. We have somebody on our team who's really, really good at analytics and came in kind of on the low end of the sales team, right? And has learned a lot about the products and the company and has kind of grown and then was able to continue to show like, look what I can do with all of our sales numbers and global numbers. And like, look how we can bring it all together and like finding your way into other opportunities. Which I just think like, keep in mind that the starting point might not be the dream job. The starting point might be getting in, being open-minded, and then continuing to find ways to kind of flex those muscles where you're like, I have this awesome skill set. I know I can use it, and like figuring out ways to use it in projects.
Cool. Well, I think that's a good segue into your own personal experience coming out of college and what got you to your role. I think it's nice to hear about like adults and what got them to where they are. So you are like a senior recruiter at a cool company here in Austin, Texas. How did you get there coming out of college? What college did you go to, and what were the jobs that you had before now?
I don't know if we have time for this journey, do we?
Let's do it. I have all my students
Um,
waiting outside, and they're going to keep waiting because this is fun stuff.
we'll try to keep it pretty short. So I went to Northeastern University in Boston.
Yep.
Um,
You hear that,
I was
Hebel? You hear that, Hebel? Hebel's one of my students. She always wear a Northeastern shirt, and I always like, hey, well, you know that I mentioned to
Go
her like
Huskies.
8 times. Yeah, never
Tell
mind.
her.
Yeah,
Go Huskies.
yeah, go Huskies.
Uh,
Exactly.
so yeah, I went to Northeastern. I was a business major, marketing and entrepreneurship. Coming out of school, I thought I wanted to be a buyer. I wanted to be in merchandising. So that was the journey and path that I was initially on. I had internships kind of in that realm and part of life. Worked for a year and kind of realized it's not my passion. It's not what I want to do. And I totally switched gears. So I was in this situation where I had this business degree. I thought I wanted to do one thing, and I decided that I actually wanted to do something more in youth development and in the outdoor industry. And I decided I wanted to work for summer camps, which is a real business, like a multi-million-dollar business. And I didn't realize it could be a full-time job. So I go back to the networking. I started talking to anyone who would talk to me, people who owned summer camps, people who had full-time jobs at summer camps, to just talk me through what they do and how I could get a job. And I found out, oh, you need to do marketing and sales and budgeting, and you need to plan. And there are a lot of logistics. And Mr. Messner knows about this too. I dragged him into the camp life for a long time, lots of spreadsheets, lots of scheduling and planning.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I talked to anyone who would talk to me and finally got myself a few interviews for full-time jobs at summer camps. Spent 14 years in that summer camp industry where I swear I'm making a point about getting to recruiting. So I did sales and marketing, and I recruited all of our seasonal and year-round people. So I hired thousands of people. It was something that I was very passionate about the culture, passionate about hiring the right people and getting them into the right places, making sure that they loved their jobs and loved the culture of what they were doing. So when I left the camp world after we had 2 kids, and I decided that I wanted more of a normal desk job, of all of the things I'd done at the camp, between the sales and the marketing and the scheduling and the recruiting and all of that, I decided that I wanted to really focus on people. People and culture is kind of the passion that I have. So I started what I did in the first place when I found a camp job. I started talking to anyone who would talk to me about how do you get just, a normal, or what's seen as a normal recruiting role in a larger corporate environment versus what I had been in, which is kind of more like the education field. So
Yeah, and I remember especially you just started networking and talking to a lot of different people through a lot of different connections. Like, hey, I have this experience being a recruiter of a camp. Part of my job was recruiting in camp, and I want to just focus on recruiting. What can I do and how can I get my foot in that door? And then, what was your first job as a desk recruiter?
yes, I worked for a digital marketing agency. So I did that for just over 2 years. It was a great opportunity to learn about all different aspects or facets of marketing, right? And got a chance to work with different directors and hiring managers. I learned about analytics and all different things. And it put me in a really, really good place for this job, which is even more broad, where I've learned about everything from finance to legal to operations to customer experience and product and sales and all of that. So it was a kind of the first building block to then getting into this role.
Yeah, and you've had to deal with more of the stuff that you had exposure to, just maybe on a different side of things with like your Indeed postings, and you just have really gained different aspects of recruiting. Starting at camp was one side of things, getting kids from other countries. You got that, and then focusing more on like online marketing and people with very technical degrees, and now you're getting into more sales roles. So it's pretty cool the path that you've taken, and I think it's a cool thing for my students to see that you know just start talking and seeing where things take you, and before you know it, like you could start out going to Northeastern thinking you're going to be a buyer and work for a big kind of clothing store business, and then completely go somewhere else and end up somewhere that maybe you had no idea you would be into. I thought I was going to be in finance for the rest of my life. I kind of knew I was always going to be a teacher, but starting in finance helped me learn a lot of things with Microsoft Excel, helped me in different jobs, helps me in this job, and now I'm teaching and enjoying that. So
I was just going to say you had a similar situation, and
yeah.
I think just goes back to that open-mindedness. You don't know where you're going to end up. So
cool. Well, do you have any questions for me before we let you go? And I have my 5th period class coming in. I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to let you go to your 5th period class because our child needs something to do other than watching an iPad on his sick day. But I would love to know what your students take from hearing about different people's jobs. And it would also be awesome if you do this again to know what kinds of questions your students have about.
Cool. Maybe I'll get questions. I'll get questions from my students' final, which is what part of it is watching this. And I'll be like, what questions do you have for Leah? I'll ask her next year. Well, Leah Mesches, mother of my 2 children, our 2 children, my wonderful wife of 13 years, almost 13 years. We're going on a date night tonight. I haven't even told her where we're going, but it's going to be really nice. It's got her favorite dish, a burrata, where it's going to be beautiful. And we get to think less and less about our son and all of his throw up when we're there. Isn't that going to be great?
Well, thank you so much. It's been fun chatting, and have a great 5th period.
All right. Love you. Bye.
Bye.